my lovely humans. We're trying this again because last week when we met with Taryn, retrograde was upon us and it all got deleted. So thankfully, she's joining us again today, and we're going to be chatting about the positivity or the power of positivity and how to use the mind-body connection to really heal. And Taryn is going to share with us her journey of healing and happiness and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really, really looking forward to doing this again and having it save. So she is joining us now. For all of you that are new, this is Happy Hour, and what we do is we meet here every Sunday to do some happy stuff and get some practical tools so that we can start healing together, being happy together, and all that kind of stuff. And once it says connecting, it's taking a little bit of time. Of course it is. To get Taryn on here, let's see. Technology. Connecting. If this is going to be funky again, I'm going to be so annoyed. Oh no. All right, well, for you guys that are new here, my name is Laura Martin, and I am the creator and founder of Healing to Happy. I help people that are suffering from anxiety and depression to heal using nutrition. It wasn't too long ago that I remember feeling totally trapped by my body and my mind and all that kind of stuff. Hi, it's working now.
Hey, hi. I turned off my Wi-Fi. I think I was too far outside.
Oh, okay.
For a good connection.
I was like, well, I guess I'll just do the intro now. Like, I don't really know. Technology.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was laughing because yesterday I had to re-record a podcast episode I did with a bunch of girlfriends here because like technology glitches saved it poorly. And
as soon as I got off our call, I like went on, obviously stalked Instagram to get my mind out of stuff because that's what we do. We escape, you know. I was like, don't be mad. And then I saw like so many other people that their like websites crashed and their like other stuff wasn't working. And I was like, okay, so maybe it's not just me. I'm gonna blame the moon like I always do.
Mercury's out of retrograde now, so we should be in the clear.
We should be good. But as I was saying, so I was doing the little intro and I was just saying that like I remember too long ago of just like being trapped by my mind and body, and that what I would do is take it out on my body. And that's why I find your work so interesting. And what we spoke about last time is like the core root of everything is your belief in yourself and how you can actually set yourself free. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that keep you trapped within your body, but the one thing we usually do when we don't feel at home or at peace in our body is we abuse it, either through drugs, alcohol, addictions, eating disorders, all that kind of stuff. All of the friggin' things. Yeah. And that's exactly where like many failed attempts and lessons learned came out of that, and now create courses. I'm actually doing a 3-day challenge right now for like Gut Fit for Summer, because so many of us, like, I don't know about you, it's always like, hey, we're like trying to lose that quarantine weight. And I'm like, what about that mental weight that we all gained during quarantine? Like, not about that physical side, but like that mental side that you have going on. So I'm excited to dive in today with Taryn, and she's going to give her a lovely introduction so that you guys can learn more about her and her story, and then we'll get in there. So, tell the people at home who you is.
Okay, fine. I'm Taryn. I'm also known as the Remote Yogi, and I have an online wellness platform for women, primarily around yoga, meditation, and personal development. And I coach women primarily on how to shut off that self-doubt and that anxiety brain that keeps you from going after what you want and become a badass who fiercely believes in themselves. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is that fierce self-belief and how we can get there by, turning off the noise in our brains. I'm somebody who's had extra noise in my brain my entire life. Was diagnosed with depression when I was about 11, but I think it was depressive symptoms of anxiety. As I've been dealing with anxiety my entire life, it just was misdiagnosed. And that kind of constantly having this doubt in your mind. Mine was more towards I was never doing enough. So my anxiety brain to this day still tries to cling on this belief that like I'm never doing enough, especially as an entrepreneur with 2 businesses, like always more I could be doing. And this played out in different ways. And at a young age, when it was first coming on, I did not know how to handle the extra emotions, the extra feelings, and took charge by numbing out with cigarettes and alcohol and eventually drugs. And when that wasn't really as effective anymore because I couldn't keep up my perfect image, then I, got into workaholism. And if I just become obsessed with working, then it's productive. So it's fine. I can still like numb out with overwork, which then led into becoming obsessed with things like yoga and personal development. But at the beginning, it was less healthy. It was actually like, okay, here's another form of numbing out. Let me just pour all my energy into watching the podcast and reading the books and doing the exercises and not actually deal with things. And yeah, I think I'm excited to talk about positivity today because I know we talked about this last time.
Yeah.
You use that word as part of like describing what we're talking about. And I'm actually like anti-positivity to the realm that most people are because of this reason. It was like I was surrounded by positivity all day long, but I was avoiding actually dealing and processing anything. And so instead my gut was out of control for years. I've had hormonal issues since then that I'm still trying to recover from. And I was, even during all that, still having anxiety attacks at the bottom of my shower, acting like life was fine. And it wasn't. So yeah, stepping away from the mask of positivity, I would say is important.
Yeah. And I mean, that has me like reflecting on so many things that you just said. I'm like, same girl. Like, I remember I was sitting when I finished, like, it's like it's just like perfectionism at the root of its core. It's like, where does it stem from? Because like, I was diagnosed with depression at 13. And I see now that it was actually just anxiety because I didn't know how to be in my body. So I was continually trying to do better, be anything that wasn't me, And at that same time, like striving for this fictitious person as opposed to just being like, yo, you right here in the mirror, you're good. Like even today, this morning, like when I was doing my workout, I was literally staring myself in the eyeballs, being like, you are enough. This is great. Look how strong you are. I was like, if anyone walks in this gym right now, they're going to think you're insane. Because at the root of it, like we're constantly trying to strive to be something better. And we don't really realize that yes, you can have goals and you can achieve all this stuff, but what your power is and what you do with your clients is you try and help them understand that you as yourself right now are totally enough. So it kind of like, I think people learn from the power of sharing stories. So something that you have written on your website is that before I found the tools that I'm sharing with you, I was a complete wreck of anxiety and depression. My life revolved around the chase of perfectionism until I pulled myself off the bathroom floor after another panic attack and made a decision this was not going to be my life story. And I like read that and I was like, yeah, I've done that like several freaking times and like resonates so deeply. So I'd love to hear like your ice cream on the like kitchen floor or locked in your bathroom kind of moment that kind of shifted everything for you.
Yeah, this exact moment where it was like, okay, enough's enough. I was already like a year or two into yoga teaching. I was like, I was already like creating this healthier lifestyle, but I was still in this very toxic marriage. And I got married young. I didn't believe in divorce as part of my conditioning as a child. And thought that like if I give up on this or I leave this situation, I'm failing and I'll just prove to the world how much I don't belong and how not enough I am and like all these thoughts, right? And my ex-husband was an alcoholic and would get a bit out of control with his alcoholism to the point where he would get like paranoid and like really crazy things. And I kept so much of this to myself because I was like, well, if somebody knows what's happening in my household, they're going to tell me to leave and I don't believe in leaving. So like all these things. And there was one night where he had friends over and I think most of the friends were like asleep by now, but like, just a drunk night, lots of people in my house that I don't know. And he gets on one of his like tirades where he's just kind of being really paranoid. And I'm like, I've had enough to drink where like, I can't handle like, I can't leave. I've had like enough drink where I can't drive. And I feel so trapped in my own house, and I felt like scared. And I was also like, why am I still here? And so I went into the bathroom and I just had a panic attack. And usually when I have a lot of anxiety, I would go into the shower, because for me, like, if I'm crying, but the shower's happening, I don't know that I'm crying, so it's fine. That was like my excuse, is like, it all
It's
washes
like
away.
washing it away. You're like, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Like, I'm not crying, it's the water. Everything's fine. My life's perfect. And like, yeah, it was just, that's where I'd go. And, just like laying there with the water pouring over me, like in the bottom of my shower, just freaking out. And I was like, this can't continue to be my story. Like, this is not okay. It doesn't matter how messed up I've been in my life, doesn't matter how much stuff I've done wrong, like, this situation's not okay. And I had to call my dad, who lives an hour away from me, and had to ask him to come pick me up from my own house as an adult in the middle of the night. It was like 3:00 in the morning. And yeah, I was like in that ride with my dad where I was also like, I can't have my dad come pick me up from my house anymore because I'm scared. Like, life's got to change. So that was a big wake up call for me.
Yeah. I mean, how many of you guys have like stood in your shower just being like, it's fine, I'm fine. It's totally cool. That was my thing with when I first moved here, and was like same thing. Had like an abusive ex, an addict and stuff, and so it was always the bathroom. It's always the bathroom you like go to, and you're like, I'm just gonna go right here, close this door, as long as you don't see me. And I know we spoke in this last time. It was like that power of vulnerability, of like being seen, of like, I'm fucking not okay. And like, we don't really do that as people. We love to like shy away and of like, hey, something's not right, but because I'm feeling this way, I'm not going to vocalize that to you. And so we don't know the next right moves because we keep it so hidden, like to the fact that like you couldn't even show your husband. They're like, hey babe, I'm not comfortable right now, get out of my house, like I need to leave. And like, instead of you saying, hey, I need my home to be a home, it's you had to extract yourself from that, which I'm sure there's deeper things way beyond that, right? But like, so many of us sit there being like, this isn't working, I'm not speaking my truth. But instead of speaking my truth, I'm just going to sit in the shower and be scared and all this kind of stuff. So what was, after you call your dad, you kind of moved through that, what was your next right move, I guess? Like, how did you have that surrender of like, okay, this positivity and this yoga and this stuff isn't actually at the root of it. There needs to be some like feeling done with that. There needs to be some more stuff.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the bathroom thing for just a second, and then I'll answer that question. Because yeah, it can be like a way of escaping, but also when I'm working with my clients around like intense anxiety, where you have public anxiety attacks and things like that, I actually suggest the bathroom. So like, it can be a safe haven, because if you're at a party and you're feeling overwhelmed and you need to go breathe for a minute, if you step outside, likely somebody will follow you, right? Like, the bathroom's a place where like most likely people aren't going to follow you in, or you have the right to kind of be like, hey, I don't need company for this, like whatever. And then you can go in there and do whatever methods you need to calm down. Like, my clients do a lot of like shaking and affirmations and whatever, but you can do that in a safe place, even if it's a bathroom stall at a mall, like, so bathrooms can be a really safe place to like process things when you're in public settings. But yeah, like when you're in your own home and you feel like you have to hide in a bathroom, that's not cool. But yeah, so the process of getting through this, so it's funny that I say like that was my wake-up call, because I still stayed in that marriage for a while. But it was like, that was the wake-up call that I needed to start shifting things within myself. So I also wanted to feel like when I left, I knew it was 100% the best choice and that I had tried everything I could. And so I started to read more into like personal development, but in a way that I was like, okay, I'm going to actually start implementing these things instead of just reading them to feel good, which was a big shift. And then when I did finally decide to leave and move out, it was that year of being alone for the first time, where like I wasn't needing to cook for anyone else. Because even before I was married, I always had people around who needed things from me because it made me feel good, right? So I've always been a provider. And that was the first year I ever spent being selfish, right? Like doing things purely for myself and not having to worry about anyone else. And it was in those moments of prioritizing me and my needs and getting to know who I was by myself when no one else was around that I started to like really step into my self-belief and my confidence and knowing that like who I am when I'm by myself is freaking awesome. So if I can bring that person out in the real world and encourage that, then yeah, it kind of strips away all those fears that you're not okay.
Yeah. And I mean, that freedom to be you, right? Like that you can actually like show up. But a lot of us, we're so used to nurturing and taking care of other people or people pleasing and all this kind of stuff because that's the normal thing, right? Like as women, this is what we do. And it's like, yes, okay, we are nurturing. That's fine, like totally cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, are you like what I see a lot of my clients doing is like the new moms or like all that kind of stuff is they don't make time because they see that as selfish. But you actually realize that like if you're serving from like who is it that says like only serve from your saucer? Because it's like you have a teacup and you're filling up your cup and you can only serve from your overflow that hits the saucer. Like you cannot fill from an empty cup. And I think that is so freaking accurate of like, hey, okay, you have to take the time to sit in the bathroom if that's what you need. You need to take a longer shower. You need to really go for a walk, drink a tea, enjoy some time for yourself so that you can show up better in the world. But a lot of us, it's just so hard when you've been conditioned for your whole life to be doing, pleasing, taking care of, especially those that suffer from anxiety and depression, because that's how you get a validation. That's how you're oh, I'm good enough. Like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like,
you need me. It makes me feel good. Yeah, that my codependency was needing to be needed. It just feels really good. But yeah, women typically relate their worth to a role that they play. Yeah. So whether they're a good wife, good mother, good sister, good friend, or just good person in general, like we want to be good. And because we put our value into a role, we always have to be performing and doing in order to feel worthy or feel enough. So this is a work I do with my clients to kind of break down those stories. For me, a lot of it comes from like I was raised in the church where you're pretty much told that your job is to be selfless and to be perfect and to not need anything for yourself, which is false. So any of you who are raised in the church, sorry, that's wrong. I can walk you through it at another time. But the other big thing, I had lots of clients who were my yoga students who were moms or in relationships or whatever, where like even just coming to a yoga class, they feel guilty. They'd say, I was gone all day at work. Then I pick up my kids to bring them to the gym, to leave them at daycare again, to come to yoga because it feels good for me, but then I'm a bad mom. And I have to remind them, you're being a great mom because if you don't go to yoga, you're probably going to be an asshole for the rest of the night, which is not great either, right? You want your kids to get the best version of you. The best version of you needs you to prioritize self-care. Because then if you go to the yoga class, you do the meditation, or you take some time away from them, then when you show up, you're feeling energized. You want to do the things that they want to do. You want to get on the floor and play with them. And same with your friends. Like, by me saying, here's a boundary, here's self-care that I need to do for myself, it gives you permission, Laura, to do the same thing. If you text me and say, like, hey, are we still on for lunch tomorrow? And I'm like, actually, I'm really needing a self-care day tomorrow, and I need to cancel lunch. It gives you permission to do that next week or whatever, and just put yourself first is great for other people because then they get to put themselves first.
It's the leading by example. That's something, especially as an entrepreneur. Like, I come Friday, like, that's when, I know Julia was talking about this the other week as well. But, like, Fridays for me, I can't. And I will continually keep trying to make plans for Friday. But then, like, Friday comes and I'm like, I don't want to see another fucking human. Like, I can't do it. And I need to just, like, I don't look at my screens. I don't look at anything. I take a half day from work because it's just, like, as an entrepreneur, it's not like I get to Friday and I'm super excited and I can't wait to blow off steam. It's like, I just need I need to do my hippie shit. I need to talk to the moon. I need to not look at a screen. I need to, like, humans. I can't do it. But when I first started implementing that, like, 2 years ago, dude, I would have, like, ex-boyfriends be like, what is wrong with you? And they, like, I've literally had boyfriends break up with me because because the boundaries and that. And I was like, but you don't get it. Like, that's, if I don't wake up and do my morning routine, if I don't set these boundaries within my life, if I'm not asleep at a certain time, I'm a dick. Like, and I have a team I need to answer to. I have people that, like, rely on me to get paid so they get paid. Like, I have clients, I have people, it's like, you can't show up and keep thinking like, oh, I'll do, like, here's my saucer, take everything I have, because you burn out. and then you're just a dick, and then you're drinking, then you're using drugs, and then you're over exercising so that you could feel this high, or you're trying to just move out of your body because that's your stress response. And that's so freaking common. Like people waiting for Friday to go have fun and then keep partying until Sunday, where then you're binge eating something, going to a brunch so that you can make it through the rest of the week, and you're not living in alignment. Like that's not, I mean, that is fun, don't get me wrong, like I love going for cocktails with some friends and stuff, but it's like the need that you think like Friday is your blow off steam moment where you don't have to be you anymore. That's the root of where I see like anxiety and depression show up, where then you talk to someone, you're like, hey, are you anxious or depressed? They're like, no. And you're like, okay, are you like binge eating? Are you like are you escaping on the weekends?
I'm just numbing all the time. I'm fine.
It's insane. And you're like sitting there and they're like, yeah, I do that. Like, that's normal. And I'm like, not really normal.
Yeah.
Common, yes. Normal, no.
Yeah. I mean, the craziest thing in all this is like, we just keep moving. We just keep moving. We just keep moving, right? Just keep swimming. But what ends up happening is we lose ourselves in that process, and we don't realize that we lose ourselves in that process. So, you know, for me, when pretty much my entire life, I was doing way too much stuff all the time. Like, I was in every club in school, working 2 part-time jobs, and decided to graduate a year early because, like, why not? And this kind of pattern continued. Yeah. When I was married, I was, like, head of the household, right? So I was, like, doing all the householdy things, budget, groceries, all the meals, all the house yard work, whatever. Also was working full-time as a director for a company doing events and communications, and ran 3 small businesses because why not? And again, it was just like, if I just stay busy enough, then I don't have to feel. But when I don't feel, I don't know who I am anymore. And so a lot of the work I do with clients in the first month or so of like this self-belief process is actually figuring out who they are. And I get a little bit of pushback on this because everyone's like, I know who I am. Like, da, da, da. And when we dive in, they're like, oh, there's all these layers that because we've been moving through life so quickly, we tend to forget about our deep selves. And we've just layered on mask after mask after mask to kind of keep up with social appearances. That, yeah, it is like a new journey of discovering who we are. Before we can believe in ourselves, we have to like really know who we are. So that's interesting because I get a lot of pushback on it.
Always. And I mean, because you sit there and you're like, well, I know who I am. I've been doing this. This is what I like to do. And you're like, no, but what are you when it's like still? And that's what happened. Like my first launch after the new year, like hit my numbers, hit everything. And I remember sitting in a cafe, closed my laptop and just went, oh, fuck. Like now I have to face myself, because Healing to Happy was built out of a breakup. Like I had so much energy in this toxic relationship where I was like, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to create some magic and sprinkle some shit everywhere. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I got to the, like, that's proof that, like, you can hit your numbers, you can get your money, you can do all this kind of stuff. You're still you at the end of the day. And so when you're done chasing that, one, you're never going to be done because it's going to be the next thing and all this kind of stuff. So it was, like, such a rude awakening to, like, literally, I remember sitting at the Commons and, like, shut my laptop and then instantly called a life coach. And I was like, so I need to hire you because, like, I don't know what to do right now. Like I have therapy. I do all these like tools, and this is what I want to dive into now, because you're talking about the positive thinking, positive thinking. Because I agree with you. It's one of those things where like we sit there and it's so airy fairy, and we're like da 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 da. Like I have this, I have that, and like my therapist has literally told me, my new therapist in the last 3 weeks, every single time I see her, she's like, you're not allowed to use your tools. Not like I'm not even giving, she's like, put it down, because you're just doing these things. You're not feeling anything. Like you're like, oh, I have this thought. Let me go meditate, like listen to some like spirit guides and whatever. And it's like, we do that. Like that is another form of escapism. It can be used as a tool to bring you in. And I see that now of like, okay, when I'm feeling anxious, let my thoughts run wild and then come back to center. Like, but for so long, you can get so lost in it where you're like, this is my saving grace. Because if I'm not like doing drugs and drinking and all this stuff, well, then spirituality has to be the right option, right? Like, and you just go the polar opposite and you're like, well, not really, because you're still not unearthing what's the root of it.
Yeah. Actually, like my ex-partner and I were sitting in a cafe in Ubud a couple of months ago. And Ubud, for those who haven't been to Bali, is like the spiritual haven of yogis and whatever. And we were sitting there watching interactions in the cafe. And he said something about, isn't it funny that everyone comes here to find themselves and then they end up looking like cookie cutters of each other? And it was just us witnessing that, like, yeah, what happens when we get into feel-good states, when we get into things like spirituality or personal development in any way, is we just jump in and we take on this new identity of yogi or spiritualist or whatever, and that's still a label and it's still a role, and we haven't fully figured out ourselves within that. We just mold ourselves to match that spectrum, which can be really dangerous. But going back to the tools thing, I just recorded a podcast with a bunch of girls where we were all sharing how to best support each other when we're going through mental health issues or just hard times. And we were all talking about how important it is to say it's okay to not use your tools right now. Because I think we get really frustrated with ourselves. Like, we have our primary emotions, right? Which is like the stress, the anxiety, the depression. And then we have the secondary emotion, which is like the afterthought, like, oh, I'm feeling sad. And then I'm feeling shameful about feeling sad because I have all these tools that I should be using. Or I'm feeling anxiety. And then I'm feeling judgment towards my anxiety because I'm an anxiety coach. And how the fuck can I be having anxiety right now? Right? Like, so we have these things. And when we're in that personal development space, again, we have all these tools. And so we can get harsher critics on ourselves because we're like, I have all these tools. I've spent so much money on all these coaches and all these things. And how am I stuck in this shitty relationships again, or in this hard time? But it's also like understanding that even when you're not using the tools, you now have a perspective shift. So I'll give an example. I left my partner about a month ago. We decided to go on a big break, and it was not something I could process at that time at all. And I knew that it was bad to avoid my feelings. I knew that. And I was still like, but I just can't deal with it right now. And so what I did for 2 weeks was dive right back into workaholism. But I was doing it, witnessing the fact that I was doing it. And I was like, I know what I'm doing. I know that it's not right, but I just really can't deal. And when I have the energy and the capacity to deal with it, I will. And so it was like in that moment where I was like, I'm just going to work. I'm going to pour all my heart and energy into these new programs I'm designing. And then in bits and moments, I was like, okay, I'm going to breathe for a minute and feel this. Oh my God, that's a lot. I'm going to dive right back into work. And I did this for a couple weeks until I was able to really sit with it and then start using the tools if I choose to, right? But yeah, I think it's important that we're not rushing through the process because we're so enlightened that we have all these tools and methods.
That's exactly it, right? Like, exactly what you're saying. Like, I realized I had like a horrible relationship breakup, whatever, about 3 years ago now. And it wasn't until COVID, like the unexpected Vipassana that I did not ask for, of being alone in a foreign country by myself in my apartment right before going into quarantine, end up running into that ex again, where I haven't seen in 3 years. And it was just this overwhelming, like, oh, you actually haven't dealt with that. All these tools you've been doing are actually not helping with that. Like, yes, okay, health and everything, you got it, girl, good job, but like your mental health, like you didn't fix that, but you didn't get your heart back. And so dealing with that, but not sitting there being like, okay, I need to instantly escape this thought by meditating. I need to instantly start writing things down and manifesting and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no. And I did the same thing as you. I did 17 events in April. Like, I was like, nope, I'm not thinking about any of this. I'm going to just escape. Yeah. And then it got to the end of April and I went, oh, you did that thing that you did. But instead of having guilt or shame or any of that stuff, it's just like, okay, you did a human moment. And that's why I freaking love every time you say that. You're like, yeah, human moment, embracing human. Yeah. Like, it is what it freaking is. Like,
human. Yeah.
Seriously, like, we sit there and it's like, okay, yes, like, as coaches and all that kind of stuff, like, we do have certain tools that we give to clients and stuff, but at the same time, you're still human and you're still allowed to be human and walk some steps. It's just being one step ahead of where your clients are at. Like, that's the difference. It's like, we're not some like superhuman that's like, I'm never sad, I'm never bloated, I never have brain fog. It's never any of this stuff. It's just like, no, I still have panic and stuff. Like, even like over the weekend, we were at a party and I did go to the bathroom and I was like, guys, I just went upstairs to sit on the couch. Like, there was a couch upstairs. I was like, too many people, I can't do it.
You're gonna do some breathing and some shaking and some dancing.
Exactly. Again. You're like, I don't know, I'm human again. It's like,
I know.
And I think that's why I love doing chats like this, because it's so real, as opposed to like looking at like these doctors and like these whatever people, and like you sit there and you're like, well, that's just like I'm not a biohacker. I'm not a superhuman, and nor do I want to be. Like, I like feeling my feelings. I don't know about you, but like, yeah, okay, anxiety and depression sucks, but like, it's so
But they're always teaching you something. There's always a lesson,
always,
right?
always, always,
Like,
always.
yeah, and now I like see my anxiety as something different. I'm like, oh, like that's part of my intuition. Oh, like this has
Yes.
actually taught me a lot of things. It's actually
Yes.
been a really helpful tool in pushing me, sometimes probably harder than it should have, but you know, it's been helpful for me in my life and seeing things in that light. That's something with positivity that's nice. It's good that when you've gone through the process and you've healed, that you can kind of start to shift into like a positive or a gratitude type perspective, but not when you're in the shit. Like if you're in the shit and you're like having a hard time being like, oh, I need to just hop to positivity. Like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
No.
That's not actually helpful. It's called spiritual bypassing, and it's not going to help you heal. It's not going to help you feel better in the long haul, and it's not going to help you learn the lessons. Like sometimes my clients will reach out to me and they're just like having a really hard time and they're feeling the dread and they're feeling the things. And I'm like, cool. I'm not going to give you any tools today. Check back in tomorrow. Sit in it.
Dude, my therapist does that.
Oh, yeah. You're going to get uncomfortable. You got to.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, right? Like you can't have this grandiose life of elation and like just like an orgasmic life, right? Like you can't have that if you're not going to sit in the swamps of sadness. Like you can't have one without the other. And that doesn't mean there's like the difference. And we spoke about this last time is like the victim mentality and just like being in it. Because if you're sitting there being like, the woe is me, this is my fault, da 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 da, well, like this whole thing where you're perpetuating that cycle. No,
Yeah.
like that doesn't work. If you
Right.
you can sit there and take responsibility for how you respond to something, and that's how you own up and move past it, right?
I mean, that's the biggest problem with anxiety. Anxiety is a need for control in a life that we have very little control over. And so, yeah, it is understanding in those moments like, okay, I don't have control over a lot of things. I do have control over how I respond and how I move forward and how I heal. That is my responsibility. And, you know, instead of sitting in the victim mentality of like, all these things have happened to me and just saying, okay, all these things have happened for me in some way. Like, how can I overcome and rise above and move forward? That is your responsibility, right? It's important to understand that in doing so, you build huge self-belief in yourself. Like, that's the cool thing. It's everyone feels like taking away the victim mindset is like hurting other people because then it makes them feel like they're responsible for what happened to them. You're not responsible for what happened to you. Like whatever trauma you've been through, whatever hardships, like you're not responsible for that. You're responsible for your healing and how you overcome. And the badass shit about that is you, in doing that, you're like, oh, I can overcome this. And you do that enough times and you're like, oh, I am a badass. Hang on. I really know what I'm doing. And it just creates this like ownership in who you are. And that's the beauty of it. It's not to like make you feel bad. It's not to make you feel crappy about like how you could have done better. That's not the point of it. The point of ownership is to like embody this fierce ability to like conquer all. And yeah, that's what I love doing with women, is helping them get out of that like, I don't know what I'm capable of, into like, oh, throw any obstacle at me. I got this.
And that's the beauty of it, right? Like I loved what you just said is the ownership, like the ownership of who you are. Because a lot of us, we live in a world of not trusting ourselves, right? So this is why we dive into so many diet books, so many self-help books, so many, how many times do you call your best friend to actually make a decision, right? Like we don't have this belief that our innate wisdom within ourselves is good enough. Like we just, and I'm like, I was guilty of that forever, of like, before I make any decision, I need to call 6 people, and then it's going to confuse the fuck out of me. And then I need to listen to 3 podcasts, and then I need to call my dad. And it's like this whole thing of just like, you could have saved yourself a shitload of days just making a goddamn decision right there and learning from your mistakes. Because at the end of the day, if you identify as a perpetual student, you're never wrong. Yes, some things aren't going to go as planned, but like you're never wrong. You're just constantly learning. And you're like, okay, that one wasn't right. But like when you do the work to own who you are, you have your intuition, right? Yeah. Like that is where you're meant to lead, but we drown it out with all of this noise that goes on in the world. And it's hard because we have gurus and all this kind of stuff everywhere and in between, you know, like there's no shortage of that, but it's what resonates with you to help amplify the person you are within. Like there is no like diet or book or any of that kind of stuff that does that. It's just like you, what welcomes you home to you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you circled back to like the guru concept and what you were saying earlier about how important it is to be human. I mean, that's why I created my podcast, Embracing Human. And the first thing we do on the episode is drop in with like a human experience where it's like, I don't care how many numbers or letters you have behind your name, and I don't care like how cool you are. I want you to drop in real fast so people relate to you and know that you're not on a pedestal. And then let's build a conversation from that, because yeah, anytime you have people who are like, here's my pedestal, here's how I'm so much better than you, let me tell you how I can fix you, right? That's so much of our culture is like, here's all the ways that you're broken, here's my 12-step program to fixing you. I'm like, I just want to punch you in the face. Like, none of you are broken. That's what like the Embracing Human intro is like, you're not broken, you're human, like perfectly human. Let's build from there. Like, I want people to come to me feeling already good about themselves and then wanting to feel better. Like, I don't want them to come feeling like shit because of some messaging tool I just used to convince them to buy from me. No. And so, yeah, it's understanding that anytime people are on a pedestal in your life, knock them down. And anytime people keep trying to put themselves back on it, probably not your people. That's not someone you want to invest time in. Like my biggest mentor, Gabby Bernstein, the last event I just went to with her where, I spent thousands of dollars to work with her. She opens the weekend by saying, hey guys, before you think I'm really great right now, I'm working with 3 therapists, so let's just get real with the group real fast. And I'm like, hell yeah. And I still want to learn from her, and I still think she's amazing because she can say, I'm struggling, and I still know my shit. So let's, dive in and do this.
That's the biggest thing. And I think that's why, I openly speak about working in therapies and doing all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, we all got shit under our rug still. And that's why your content is always just like, nope, this is my human moment. This is what's happening. But this is what I'm doing about it. Like, I'm not sitting in it. I'm being active in it. I'm like, hey, I see that I'm being human right now. This is what I learned. Okay, I'm going to go this way now. And that's how you teach. And that's why the questions that I like to start with is always like, tell me your story and how you got through it. Because a lot of us are just like, oh, I studied, I went to Harvard Law and I have all this and there you go. Boom. I'm a doctor. And you're like, nah, skeet, can't do that. Tell me your life experience and your story so that I can relate, so I can be human and see that you're still human. That you eat cookies on the weekends and enjoy some rosé with some friends and sometimes you overwork. Great, cool.
Yeah. That's my thing too. And that's honestly I've done a lot of therapy in my life and I have found amazing therapists, but part of why I'm so drawn to coaching and why I'm addicted to having my own coach almost all the time is because I generally like to work with people who have been through a similar experience to what I'm going through rather than have learned from it in a book and probably have great tips and probably have great tools. And that's amazing. Therapists are amazing. For me, I connect with people who have gone through this shit. Hang on just a second. My housekeeper needs something. Okay. Laundry? Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, but same. That's why I will always have a coach. I always have a mastermind group. I always have therapy. And then I have really, really good friends that I finally found where I can show up and be vulnerable with. Just being hey, this is what's going on in my mind today. And they're literally my best friend over the weekend, I sent her a voice note and I was going on set, why the fuck can't my brain just be normal? What the fuck is shit? And then I just went out for a walk and gave a bunch of money to homeless people and just smiled at a bunch of strangers because I was this is what makes me feel good. And she's like, honey, to be fair, your brain is never going to be normal. That's just the thing that I love about you the most. It's never going to be normal. You think and breathe deeply. That's okay. Own it. She's like, your favorite thing about you is your brain too. What are you talking about? I was like, yeah, I know, you're right. But having friends like that, where you can sit down, you just said about sitting down and having the podcast of what can we do when you're having mental health issues? Not to say, hey, come over and let's, I don't know, drink it away and do all this kind of stuff. It's no, how can I support you through being a human? You know, and we need more of that. So what is kind of some advice for anyone listening that is struggling about opening up and finding about who they are at their core and owning who they are? What are some things that you would suggest?
Well, the experience of that can be really lonely. And you'll probably going through this process, see who your humans are and see who maybe is not serving you. And so if you know people in your spectrum and your space already that will not judge you, that will hold you through whatever you're going through, like let those be your people during this time. And if you don't have that right now, like that's okay. Maybe you find online communities, like there's lots of amazing Facebook groups or whatever. It's good to have at least 1 or 2 people in your corner who are like not telling you the next thing to do, who are not trying to fix anything, who are not like trying to judge anything that you're going through, and they're just there. That's important. Because then at that point, it's just about getting uncomfortable and sitting with yourself and identifying, where am I wearing masks? Where am I not showing up authentically? Where am I doubting myself and why? And what's that story behind that doubt? And like, it's a deep dive and definitely something you can do on your own. Definitely something that is easier when held by someone who can own that space for you, whether it's a therapist or a coach or a friend who's just been through something similar. But yeah, it's a slow journey. So be patient. Don't try to like, I'm going to have everything figured out next month. Like, don't do that. It'll just stress you out. You know, I started this journey about 5 years ago, and I'm still having moments of like, oh, fuck, I didn't know that about me. Here we go. New thing to process.
Well, I also feel like something always comes up. It will forever be a journey, because you uncover one thing and then your body, because your body keeps the score, right? And like, then your body will release another thing that you need to work on, and because then it's safe and it can explore into that, because you have some tools, you can go to that stuff and all that kind of stuff and keep moving forward. But if you keep running and you keep escaping on the weekends and you keep binge eating at night and you keep kind of not allowing yourself to catch up to yourself, then it's just this perpetual cycle. And like, yeah, it's not freaking fun all the time. Like, it definitely gets exhausting. And like, some days I'm like, I'm watching Netflix and I'm not fucking thinking about anything because my brain won't shut off. Like, because I will always like, I'll see something, I'll be like, what does that mean? Oh my God, there was a blue butterfly. What does that mean? Like, it's just like constantly feeling something, or like feeling like a pain in the body. And like, it's always being curious. And like, it does get exhausting sometimes, but it is kind of just like allowing that messenger to catch up with your body. And a lot of us, we see that in signs in our like illnesses. We see that in autoimmunity. We see that in gut health. We see that in anxiety, depression. Like, the thing that I love to emphasize with people is like, when these things show up, it doesn't mean you're broken. And that's like something that with specifically anxiety and depression, they're like, hey, you're broken. Here's a pill. Here's how you fix it. And like, you're perpetually on this cycle. And it's like, you're not broken. Your body is just saying, hey, I need a little bit of something else. And it's like, I'm not saying anti-medication or anything like that. They have their time and their place when they're in, but it's not the solution. That's just the suppression and the management, where it's like, there's something like, underneath. Pills are
really great to get you into a place where you can process the deep shit, right? Because sometimes it's so bad where you're like, you can't process things. But when we use medication as a way to just continually avoid processing, that's where it becomes a problem. Because I forgot to share that in my story earlier. You know, part of what had me thinking my entire life that I was never enough is because when I was 11 and diagnosed with depression, they told me at that age, there's something wrong with your brain. Your brain's broken. You need this medication to be normal. And so I had this belief from a young age that like, oh, there's a chemical imbalance in my brain that makes me broken, which has also been scientifically disproven.
It's not true. Yeah, it's not true.
And now I can understand like, oh, like my brain operates in a way that actually would have been really useful, you know, years and years and years ago, like hundreds of years ago, right? When we were like living in tribal communities, and I would have been the person who's like, I'm not sure about that cave. That looks like that might have some lions down it. Or, you know, I'm the one who's like high alert, and that would have saved the community. Whereas now we don't really need to be hyper alert all the time. And then we have all these devices and bright lights and sounds that keep us hyper alert, and it's not necessary. And so it's just like being okay with that and learning that it's not as needed now, and how to calm that down without feeling like something's wrong with you.
Yeah. And that's why like both of our work goes so nicely together, where it's just like nothing is wrong with you. It's just look at the tools, look at your nervous system. And like you're raised in a day and an age where like same thing happened to me. 13 years old, you're broken. Here you go. By the way, you have a chemical imbalance because it runs in your family. Now in my line of work, I'm like, that doesn't even fucking exist, you asshole. And I spent my whole life thinking I was broken. And now it's rewiring and using, I know we were saying not using tools, but really kind of sitting with that and being like, what comes up when you tell yourself you're broken? What do you normally want to do? And it's like, drink, binge eat, escape. Okay, so what do we do in that moment? How do we show yourself that it's safe? And like, that is so much of the coaching, because that doesn't come from just like, okay, yeah, like I'm positive, I'm like repeating that to yourself. It's like, no, you actually have to like sit in it and be like, okay, where did that stem from? And how do we heal that? And where do we sit with that inner child work? And how do we be vulnerable enough to like communicate that with the world and being like, yo, today is just a day, I'm not feeling it. And like,
Yeah.
being able to swing that rope sometimes, that you don't have to do it alone. You shouldn't do it alone, because your brain is this funky little thing that'll pull some crazy ass tricks on you and tell you funny stories. And then when you say it out loud to someone, you're like, oh, never mind, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. And like you mentioned this earlier, that understanding you can't just want to be happy all the time. Like, you need the opposite in order to understand how great the happiness is, right? Like, we need the sadness to feel joy. We need the anger to feel peace. Like, we have to have these polarities, because what ends up happening is, like, if you're constantly happy and like nothing's going wrong in your life, you never have any challenges, you end up just getting to this baseline where like happy feels normal and there's no ups and downs, but you need a bit of, because you have to have that overcoming feeling. Like, there's a fulfillment to like working through these tougher times. And so when you don't have that, it's just numb and it's like one level, and that's what depression is. People think depression, sadness. It's not. It's this numb feeling of like there's no fluctuations. Everything's just kind of the same. And so when we want to be happy all the time, it actually leads to depression. So it's a good thing to be like, oh, I have all these challenges. I had a day where I was really angry, because I think it's Osho who says like, happiness is like this giant, beautiful tree, but it has its roots in deep sadness and sorrow. And the tree can only grow as tall as the roots can grow deep. And so it's like, yeah, you have to have those polarities and know that like the silver lining to that is when you're in deep shit, there's going to be a brighter sunshine at some point in the future, because it's got to balance out. But letting that be okay.
That kind of reminds me of like one of the main pillars that I see with working with people that do suffer from anxiety and depression is like always getting in fights with their partner just for like some excitement, something like that. Because you're feeling this stagnant kind of thing. So you're like, let me poke the bear a little bit. Let me get in trouble. Like, this is too boring. I need to do stuff. And like, again, people will be like, no, that's just normal. Like, I'm used to getting in screaming matches with my partner. And you're like, not normal.
Not normal. Yeah, and Dana said, saying things out loud. Where'd it go?
Exposes. Yeah, saying things out loud exposes fallacies. Yeah, exposes fallacy that we need to believe to be true is my takeaway. Yes.
Yeah. Like, as soon as I say my crazy beliefs out loud, I'm like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Some of the beliefs I've had, like, I can only be successful if I like work 20 hours a day or something like that. And then I'm like, wait a second, like that's not real. Like,
so I've been doing a thing in the morning now where it's like, I'll say like all my worthiness and what I want to call in. And then like, I've just been like sitting like in it being like, I'm only working 6 hours a week. Like that's it. Like, because it used to be like, I worked 14-hour days, and like, I would say it in a bad way, but at the same time, this sense of pride. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
No, I don't want to do any of that. Like, I want to go kite surfing, and I want to move down south and live in a hut and like play with my future children and like do all like saying that stuff out loud. Yes. But at the same time, like when you're feeling into your swamps of sadness, that's why like I have like one good friend, and I mean, I have many good friends, but like I'll like say something where it's just like, yeah, this is what's going through my head. And then be like, okay. And I'm like, why don't you guys do that more? I feel like I'm the only one that feels this way. Like, but as soon as you do it, it's just like, oh my God, it's a release. And then you let it go and it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Which is like talking it out loud with somebody else, or even just like leaving yourself a voice note or whatever. Like saying these things out loud is just really helpful. Whether you're with a coach or you're on your own or whatever. Yeah.
And there's so many communities like online that you can just like read, or you can just like go in there and be like, oh, I'm feeling this way.
Yeah.
And people are like,
yeah, and
I too. Cool.
I'll drop real fast. I've got an online community called the Remote Yogi Tribe. And one of the coolest parts of that group is we do live calls every month where people just get on and like share what they're going through, and we get a lot of support that way. But then it's also like obviously yoga, meditation, and like the coaching elements in there as well. But yeah, there's like so many communities like mine. There's free Facebook groups. So just be in the energy of like calling in these communities. Like that's always what I suggest. Like just tell the universe, or like whatever you believe in, just make a statement like, I'm calling in people who are going to support my development, my growth, and like the right avenues will just come your way, or like the right people, right?
Yeah. What's the phrase? Like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm-hmm.
It's so friggin' true though. Like
So
someone
true.
says it differently, you're like, oh, I hear you now. Like I hear what you've been trying to say. Is there anything? This is so good. I'm so happy. I'm so happy.
I know. I was worried that like last conversation was really good, and then it's always hard to like repeat.
I was thinking that. I was like, I don't want to like project that, and so I was like doing like a shake it off this morning. I was like, okay, we're coming into this new and fresh.
Love it.
Super weirdo things. Hey, but hey, that works. Like I've been doing this new like shake it out in the morning kind of thing, just to like, I don't know, get into that energy. It's been doing wonders for my anxiety.
I get all my clients to shake. It's so good, or dance, or any kind of like, release.
Yeah, you do all of that. Like you do like the, that's like your workout, right? Like you do the dancing.
Yeah, well, it's part of it. I've been like dancing every morning before I meditate. Like I at least dance one song, because I find I sit so much that sometimes a seated meditation can be like meh. And so if I do a lot of dancing beforehand, it's like meditative for me, and I get my brain to calm down, and then I can sit for a couple of minutes and not feel annoyed that I'm sitting. So yeah, that's been fun.
I love that. That's kind of what I've been doing. And then I get like lost, and then I'm like, you have to go to work. Like, you gotta do stuff for your 6 hours a week of working. Got it, girl. So I have 3 questions. I know I asked you last time, but like since it didn't save, I'm going to ask you again, and I feel like I know what you're going to say for the first one.
Remember them, so yes. Let's go.
Perfect. Okay, so what does happy mean to you?
Oh, you remember this question, because I'm like, I'm anti-happy. Well, okay, so I don't believe in chasing happiness. Happiness, by like definition, is like this elated feeling of joy. Which is impossible to feel all the time. So I actually like to replace the word happy with fulfillment, because that is something that you should be chasing all the time. And fulfillment doesn't always come in the elated, happy moment. Sometimes it just means like, I cut myself out of bed today and I feel fulfilled for that reason. And so, just changing our definition. Like you can totally want happiness, but understand that that comes in moments, whereas fulfillment comes in like longevity, which is nice.
I love that. Because it's like the same thing as like purpose. Like, did you do something that was purposeful today, and how are you kind of feeling in that like gave you that sense of fulfillment? So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. What was the other end? 3 words you would give to your younger self.
I remember this again. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Done.
Drops mic. And the last one is, what is the one word you would use to describe your current state of being?
Oh. I used this last time again. Pixie.
Yeah.
I've been trying to embody like a fairy pixie type energy. I'm sitting in the garden. I just need magical wings, and I'm there.
You're just like, so good. I love it. You are a pixie. Your light energy is your wings, my friend.
Yes. I'm here for it. Okay.
So how can people get in touch with you, fall in love with you, do all the good things that you do?
Hey. Yeah, I mean, obviously here on Instagram is a fun place to be, the remote yogi. You can message me about like what you're going through, and I can send over some of my podcast episodes or my blog posts. I've got like over 250 blog posts, so there's probably something out there for you I can send your way. Of course, I've got the online membership community, which is awesome. And I've got a couple spaces open in my coaching program. So if you're looking to like develop self-belief, step away from that doubt and anxiety and fear, let's talk. I'm ready to dive in with you.
Love it so much. Thank you, my dear. And for all of you guys, we do continue this conversation in our private Facebook community called Happy Gut Gang. Currently, right now, we're doing a 3-day Gut Fit for Summer, focusing more on the mental health side and using nutrition to help heal anxiety and depression and IBS and all that fun stuff. And then you get a chance to win our online course, just 4 weeks self-paced. So come hang out in there. And thank you, my dear. I swear to God, if this doesn't save, I'm going to punch the moon in the face. But I think it will. I'm going to put good juju into this.
It's going to be beautiful.
It's good juju because this was so good. This was so fun.
Yay.
All right, my dear. Thank you so much. Sending you so much love. Mwah.
You too. Bye.